was a lot harder back when I started than it is today. You've got this platform to go out there and kind of show the world what it is that you're doing. We've kind of leveraged social media, but in the beginning, I didn't have any of that. It was kind of roll up your sleeves and old fashioned, just go out there and hustle it up and deliver.
Matt, thank you for joining me on our Thought Leader Spotlight series. I'm your host over here, Matt Kamp, head of partnerships at DealMachine. And on these, we really like to shine an industry spotlight on experts like yourself, hear your inspiring stories and how you see the real estate world evolving. So today, we're really excited to welcome on Matt Ricciardella. You are a real estate investor, founder and CEO of Crystal View Capital. I know your fund is managing over $500 million in assets under management and over $250 million in equity under management. So, Matt, really appreciate you taking your busy time out and spending with us for a few minutes.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I appreciate you having me on the show today, Matt, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, I told a little bit about your background, but can you tell us a little bit more about your real estate journey, how you got into real estate and then really what led to Crystal View Capital?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I started my real estate journey, back when I was 20 years old. I got my real estate license. I was a residential realtor. I moved from New York, where I grew up, out to Southern California, and didn't have any background in real estate, didn't have any family members really in real estate, any connections. I just wanted to go to sunny California as a kid. So moved out there and, started off very slow. It was a sales process for me. So picking up the phone, working that angle, getting in front of sellers, knocking on doors, a lot of prospecting, a lot of hours, and very little pay in the beginning. But eventually, by continually putting in the work, the business started to come in. And as the business came in, I was on desperate straits for some time, not knowing where I was going to get my next meal or where I was going to live day to day. But eventually things turned around. Being commission based, you don't get a salary, so you've got to really stick it out. And luckily I did. And as those commissions came in, I kind of slowly got into the residential home flipping game. Mm-hmm. So started buying homes, putting a little bit of money into them. The way I found them was cold calling, and then started selling those homes and building up a capital base, and got into commercial real estate. Wanted more passive income rather than being dependent on my next deal, like a flip would be, or being a residential realtor. I wanted just that mailbox money. And so I kind of dabbled in all real estate asset classes. I owned office, industrial, retail, multifamily, and did quite well. But I kept gravitating back to manufactured housing communities and self-storage facilities. Mm-hmm. The reason I did that is I identified that they were mostly mom and pop owned and operated, and they were by and large run fairly inefficiently. So I saw a real opportunity to get in there, buy the property right, turn it around, put in some professional management functions and operations, and really drive cash flow. And I had success in doing that personally. The problem that I had was I had a limited capital base, so I really couldn't scale because I was using mostly my own money, which was very, very limited at the time. So back in 2014, I launched Fund One because I really saw value in the business and I knew it was scalable. I just needed the capital. So Fund One did extraordinarily well. We had a 47% return in that particular fund. We sold off all the investments. Subsequent to that, we launched Fund 2, 3, and 4, and right now we're actively raising capital in Fund 4. But it's the same strategy as it was back in Fund 1, and it's been a heck of a ride.
Yeah, no kidding. One thing, love how you talked about, like, hey, I put in the work early days. Do you have any advice there? Because we definitely have a lot of customers who are, on that path, and they're trying to do that first deal. Maybe they're just trying to break into the industry. Like, what helped you kind of push through there, and what helped you kind of get over the edge there and make it a real career?
You got to have passion for it. You got to really see the vision, because otherwise you're going to fizzle out. When you're going through those tough times and you don't know how you're going to make ends meet, it's very easy to give up. For me, I guess the blessing there is I had no fallback. had nothing to go back to. I don't have a formal education. I left New York where, I didn't want to kind of run home with my tail between my legs, so to speak. So I had something to prove. And I believed in myself. I believed in what I was doing, and I just refused to give up, put it quite simply. And I had passion in it. I really, really believed in it, as I do to this day. So I don't know if that's advice, but you got to have that to work out and go through those tough times.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, when you think back to that too, I know you mentioned we're focused on the agent side, and then you slowly got into flips. On the flipping piece, any advice there of doing that first flip or first couple deals, like looking back, like what would if you were starting today, what would you do in terms of how to go about flipping?
Well, I would think about it like any investment. We always say here, if you do well in the buy, the sell will take care of itself. And I'll carry that concept back to flipping. This is an investment, right? So you're going to mitigate your risk if you buy that home right. And for me, I really didn't have a scientific strategy. It's not like I was one of these groups that went in and hired an interior decorator and put in this color scheme or had feng shui. My philosophy wasn't scientific, but it worked. And here's how it went: buy the thing way far below market value, and it's hard to get hurt, and you're probably gonna make money. That was my philosophy. It worked for me. The way it worked is I made a ton of cold calls. I found deals that were inefficiently priced, off market. I wasn't competing with other buyers. Came in, built rapport with my sales skills, put a deal together, and then honestly, Matt, I really didn't put much. The first couple homes, I spent time like, let me paint this, let me do that, but I learned my lesson. My lesson after that was buy the home right, stick a sign in the ground, and sell it the next day to another group that's going to do all of those upgrades and improvements, and you're going to get 80-90% of the upside. Leave a little bit of meat on the bone. So that was my home flipping career in a nutshell.
Yeah. I mean, I think you did a lot of the playbook of what still works today in terms of our customer base, going out there and identifying properties off market, find the ones that aren't super competitive, and then you can do that through like calling. I know we launched our dialer last year, so we've got the unlimited free phone numbers and emails that are included with your DealMachine subscription. So I think a lot of that still holds true in terms of the concept behind it, but.
Yeah, if I could give another piece of advice there, and I'll say, it's exciting because in my group, on my team, we brought on a lot of people that are younger, so a younger age cohort, and they bring a lot of technology to the table, and I'm huge into leveraging technology. With that being said, you can never forget the power of a face-to-face contact or an over-the-phone contact where you're building rapport and a relationship with raw human emotion. I'm a believer, and maybe I'm old school. I just don't ever see technology taking over that, and I don't think that's ever going to be outsourced or displaced. So if you focus on building relationships and getting in front of people, I believe you're going to do deals, and you're going to do a lot of them. And that's how I built my business up, and that's how I continue to do it to this day.
Yeah, I mean, we're a big believer of using technology as a tool to enhance your skill set, to give you more at bats, more opportunities, but not to replace you. So yeah, that's super productivity tool, right? So
absolutely, let it bring you there, and then work on building that rapport, work on building that dialogue, and connecting at a human level. The technology just takes you there, but it doesn't trump it.
Yeah. And in the end, people are going to do business with other people they know, like, and trust. And hey, go out there and be genuine on how you connect with people, and use tech to make it easier, more efficient, more effective. But you're still, on a human level, focused on building relationships. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, love that. You talked about like fundraising from there as well. Would you recommend that for people who are newer to it? Maybe they've done a deal or a couple, like, would you recommend raising a fund? How do you go about doing that? When do you do that? Like, I'd love to hear your advice there.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I could tell you is really have confidence and conviction in what you're doing. If you're going to go out there, whether it's a fund, a syndication, you're raising private money in a debt format, really understand what it is that you're doing and believe in what you're doing and have conviction and some sort of experience. I mean, I wouldn't do it on your first or second deal. Um, because the way I've always looked at it is other people's money is more valuable than my own. I mean, I would almost view that as sacred in a sense. I am not going to lose somebody else's money. They put their faith and their trust in me, and that really meant something. I looked them in the eyes, so to speak, even if I didn't meet them face to face, and told them, hey, I'm going to do a good job for you. You could trust in what we're doing and myself and my team. And we don't take that lightly. So unless you feel that way, I wouldn't advise going out there and raising capital on a what if and a maybe and something you're lukewarm on or you're going to do part time. You got to be 100% committed to this if you're going to go out and raise outside capital. So I'll start with that. If you do feel that way, it's just honor your word. I felt like I had to start small. I had to hustle. I had to go out there and spread the word around what it is we were doing. But as I executed and as I delivered, word spread and it spread fast that, hey, this guy and this group, they're delivering in the form of great returns. They're actually over delivering on what they promised. And when you do that, that investor is going to put more capital with you. They're going to tell their friends and family and their associates about you. And then it's just kind of like a snowball effect. And that's how we built Crystal View up, just organically from the ground floor by just doing what we said we were going to do and over delivering, under promising and over delivering at the end of the day.
Love that. So what was your strategy in terms of execution? Like, how did you guys really stand out and really perform like that? Do you have any lessons learned you can share there?
Yeah. I mean, really what it came down to is no different back in the early days. It was, we have a sales team, Matt, and we're entirely dedicated around going out there, building relationships with mom and pop owner operators of self-storage and manufactured housing communities. So again, we're buying the deal right. And then we really put a world-class asset management team in place to initiate the value creation plan. And what that plan is, it could range. It could be, what do we have to do to maximize NOI? Is it bringing rents to a market level? Is it filling vacant sites, growing occupancy, putting in professional marketing and management, putting in ancillary revenue sources at our self-storage facilities? So that's insurance, U-Haul, truck leasing, building more units. We devise a value add plan for every property that we buy. And we believe we've got one of the best teams, if not the best team in the business to execute on that business plan. So it's great systems, a great team, great culture, buying deals right, and simply executing. And if you do those things, you're going to deliver fantastic returns for your investors, and that word is going to spread. And especially today with social media, it was a lot harder back when I started than it is today. You've got this platform to go out there and kind of show the world what it is that you're doing. What is your unique selling proposition? What's your edge? What makes you different? And we've kind of leveraged social media just recently, and that's been huge for us. But in the beginning, I didn't have any of that. It was kind of roll up your sleeves and old fashioned, just go out there and hustle it up and deliver. And we continue to do that to this day.
Yeah. Well, on the social media front, any lessons you learned there? I know you said you guys are really, leaning into that now. I'd love to hear, especially for that newbie, like, what all they can be doing when it comes to social media.
Yeah. So, I mean, the basics for us, we've built up a pretty nice email list. We've got, I think, 450 investors right now across all the different funds that we sponsor. So that's our best target audience. We go out to LinkedIn, we're doing podcasts, kind of like I'm here with you today, and we're finding a way to give back. It's not all, let me do these things so I could try to raise capital. Sure, that's part of it. But I think if you come from a place of trying to give something, educating somebody on something that could be of value to them, I've always believed in paying it forward. When I got started, people went out of their way to help me. This is my opportunity to go out of my way to help them. And hopefully they could take one or two things that I say today and put that in place and make their business more successful. If that happens, I mean, I can't ask for anything else. If I raise money on top of that, that's just icing on the cake. So I'm coming from a place, and we're coming from a place of giving first. So that would be the advice that I would use in going the social media route.
So, Matt, I was going to mention as well. I know we had talked about how you guys are really, I guess, leaning into and focused on that affordable housing, need out there. Can you tell
Yep.
us more about, why you pivoted to that, how you've really been executing on that, how you're helping there? Like, I love to hear your guys' approach on, kind of that sector.
Yeah. No, it's right now we see there's a huge need for affordable housing in this country, and that need is going to grow. So that demand is really off the charts, Matt. When I started in the business, mobile home parks had a negative stigma, negative perception around trailer trash. Like, hey, this is very low income, and these places are a disaster. But I could tell you that is a myth. A lot of these communities are really, really nice communities. They have clubhouses and big yards, and people are building up pride of ownership. This is their most valuable asset. And we provide a means for them to buy a home that they could build equity in, and that they and their family could be proud to call home. And you don't get that in an apartment building. You don't get that when you rent a house. And it's very, very difficult and expensive to go out and buy a house today. So a lot of these folks are being displaced, which brings even more demand into our asset class. And the interesting thing here is there's very limited supply. So unlike storage, unlike multifamily and some of these other asset classes, they're really not building any more mobile home communities throughout the U.S. So you've got a very limited, stagnant supply and a demand that's kind of off the charts. So it gives us a real ability to grow our occupancy. It gives us pricing power. So our team is very heavily leaning into this idea of buying new homes, filling vacant sites, and trying to help fill this need around this affordable housing crisis that our country is going through. And frankly, our investors are profiting quite nicely in the process. So we like to think it's a win-win all around.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned just kind of a little bit macroeconomically in terms of demand and supply there, right? Where do you see things headed? I know we're pretty early on in 2025. I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on, the trends of where you see things headed this year. And then, I always hear that question of like, when is the best time to get into this, right? Like, how do you approach answering that as well?
Yeah, so I've always been a Warren Buffett follower, and I've always taken his concepts and I tried to apply them to real estate. And the reason why I bring that up is one of the things he always said. And by the way, this is the smartest investor of all time, in my mind. He's always said, don't bother trying to time markets. It's completely futile. And if he's saying that, then who am I to ever to try to time markets? So with that being said, I'm not really looking to time the trough of a market and sell at the height. What I'm looking to do is say, hey, here's where we're at today. Here's the supply and demand. Here's the cost of capital. Can I realistically go out there and create value for my investors? And I ask myself that question every day. And if the answer to that is no, it's time for me to fold up shop and to stop doing what I'm doing. And just by me being here, the answer to that question for me is I do see that opportunity. I do see the ability for us to acquire assets right, add value to them where the cost of debt is today. We could create positive leverage, which means there's a differential between the cost of our debt capital and the returns that we're able to stabilize to. So we've been able to do that quite nicely over the past few years, and I think over the next few years that trend is going to continue. So with that being said, in my industry, I see that opportunity. I would encourage each of you who, whatever asset class you're in, ask yourself that same question. And if you see that opportunity being wide, then get in. And if you don't, maybe it's time to look somewhere else.
Appreciate that insight, and especially from somebody who's been in it for, seen market ups and downs for so long, and really has had a consistent approach to this. So, Matt, great stuff today, man. Really appreciate you coming on, sharing your wisdom over the years here. How can our audience kind of get in touch with you? I know you mentioned the I think, was it invest at crystalviewcapital.com is the best way to really get in touch and get involved, or just curious how people can be following up with you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, appreciate that, Matt. Visit our website, www.crystalviewcapital.com. Reach out to us at invest@crystalviewcapital.com. If you think what we're doing is interesting, happy to share our investment deck with you. Or if you're wanting to get in the game and you have any questions that we could be helpful or a resource, don't hesitate to reach out.
Fantastic. Well, really appreciate your time today, Matt. Thanks for coming by. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me on today, Matt.
For sure. And to everyone watching, Matt Kamp over here with DealMachine, and happy deal finding.